would you please raise your hand if you consider yourself a feminist? Alright, that's what I thought. Well, 6 months ago, I didn't consider myself a feminist either. So I'm about to talk a little bit about the process I went through in figuring out why it was okay to call myself a feminist while I was writing this research essay. I guess it started with that pink sheet, lenses, and I've always been interested in issues of civil rights. I think identifying as gay brings on a whole slew of issues, from marriage to adoption to self-determination to gender identity, and I've never really been one to complain. I think we do what we do and we do the best we can with what we have, but I think that's a huge conception that people have of feminists, is that they're complainers, that they're witches, that they're people with hairy armpits, or they're people who don't shave their legs, and they're people like Hillary Clinton. But really, it's just a stereotype because we all know how cool Hillary Clinton is. So I looked into it, and you can call me vain, but I was looking at some feminist publications, and I stumbled across really gorgeous women who were really attractive by today's standards. Oh, okay. And yeah, I was hooked, and I mean, just reading the works of these three women who are championing equal rights for women, and just they're defying a stereotype that says that, you know, feminists are pissed off, man-hating lesbians. When, I mean, sure, maybe there are some of those, but, you know, that's their prerogative, and I wouldn't say that that's these guys. So, we had to start reading after this, and I was fooled by the mystique of Jane Austen's most famous novel, Emma, because what I didn't find out until I started reading it is that it's also her longest novel. And yeah, so that took up a lot of my time, and it's hard to juggle work and life and, you know, reading, so that's why God created SparkNotes, right? But really, once I did get into it, I was intrigued by the actions of Emma and other rich women in regards to marriage. And so I read it, and it was good. And I used to have this tradition where I would go to the Flicks movie theater every Sunday and watch a movie by myself, and it was very relaxing, and as I got busier, probably due to this research essay, I couldn't do it. But I had just gotten back from a trip to Seattle, and my favorite restaurant that is not on this slideshow is Citizen, and its whole back wall is covered in text pages from this book, and I was reading some one day, and so I went home and I saw that it was playing in the Flicks, the film adaptation of it. So I decided I would read it, and or I would see it, and it was really good. So I observed the role and became intrigued by the ways in which women subject themselves to patriarchal institutions, and what I found was kind of stunning. And it seems like we've known of this system's existence for a long time, so much so that we don't even realize its inherent flaws or even notice its existence anymore. We just willingly work within it and accept these things that someone has told us or that our parents did. So, one salient example of this is slut-shaming and rape culture. And I know that's a really awkward conversation to have among high schoolers, because a lot of us haven't faced this, and maybe we have, and maybe we haven't, or not yet. So it's really awkward and uncomfortable when you talk about someone assaulting someone else. And this quote comes to mind by one of my new favorite authors, Jessica Valenti, and it says, "Those of us who have the privilege of sending money to an international cause via email, while ignoring the plight of women here at home, have a responsibility to open our eyes to the misogyny right in front of us, and then to stop it." So, back to rape culture. I want to talk about the media surrounding the recent Steubenville, Ohio rape case. And if you guys don't know about this, 2 star football players, 2 young men, 16 and 17, dragged around a girl, 16 years old, vomiting, passed out, to 3 or 4 different parties, sexually assaulting her, and eventually raping her, but not before taking photos of her and disseminating them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with captions like, "This song of the night is definitely Rape Me by Nirvana," and "Some people deserve to be peed on." And this is terrifying and heartbreaking, and I was reading a lot of news coverage about it and reading a lot of different articles and seeing as much as I could find about it, and I realized one day that I was crying and it was weird, and I'm not really a crier because I'm not that emotional a person, I'm just sassy. But I realized, like, oh, and the first thing I said, "Oh my God, stop, Stan, you're being such a girl, why are you crying?" And I just started cracking up laughing that I was writing this paper on feminism and calling myself a girl as an insult. And it's just all really, it's really confusing and it's really messed up. But I think the horrifying part about this whole situation right now is the media coverage. And this is actually most recent. I just added this in here. It's CNN, which I would say most of us accept as a reputable news organization. And these kids were just given 1 and 2 years respectively, with the option of the prosecutor to make them stay until they're 21. And
two young men that had such promising futures, star football players, very good students, literally watched as they believed their life fell apart. One of the young men, Malik Richmond, when that sentence came down, he collapsed. He collapsed in the arms of his attorney, Walter Madison. He said to him, "My life is over. No one is going to want me now."
So, I don't know if you guys noticed, but she's not talking about the girl that was raped in Ohio. She's talking about the boy who raped her and saying that his life is over. And, you know, we get the sense that, like, what a shame that these boys did this, and this is what's going to happen to them. So there's one more part of this that I'd like you to see.
That verdict is handed down. Usually it's just the families of the defendants and the victims. There's always that moment of just lives are destroyed, and lives have already been destroyed by the crime, and we got a chance to see that. But in terms of what happens now, yeah, the most severe thing with these young men is being labeled as registered sex offenders. That label is now placed on them by Ohio law. And by the way, the laws in most other states now require such a designation in the face of such a serious crime. That will haunt them for the rest of their lives.
So, it's not the fact that they are rapists, and they're being labeled as sex offenders because when you assault a young girl and you take pictures of her, you are a sex offender. So they're not being labeled sex offenders, and it's not a crime that they're being labeled sex offenders, they are sex offenders. And it's really horrifying that our media is so wrapped up in this that, you know, they're gonna feel bad for these two men who made really poor decisions, and we're not gonna surround this girl with the support that she needs and the love that she needs to feel right now after being violently abused. And we see a lot of media coverage in more conservative areas of the news saying, well, why did she drink so much? And why was she wearing such a short skirt? And we're always going to find a way to blame the woman. Why did she want a divorce? Or why did she get married to him in the first place? Or why was she acting like a slut? And I don't know about you, but I think it's really harmful when we take the responsibility of everything that goes on in our world and put it on one class of people and just excuse a whole gender. We excuse men from their actions just because it's more convenient to put that on women. We see this, we see it playing out today, and I saw it playing out in both of those works. But back then, your social circle was your class. It was your social class, but now it's the whole world. We have Twitter, and we have Facebook, and we have Instagram, and everyone gets to see what you're doing. So I was just thinking about this, and I was dwelling on it, and I realized that you can't change the system just by observing it, and looking at it and criticizing it, but it has to start with the individual. And feminism is nothing more or less than women act as individuals. So I'll leave you with this quote by Gloria Steinem. and it says the first problem for all of us, men and women, is not to learn, but to unlearn. We are filled with the popular wisdom of several centuries just past, and we are terrified to give it up. The old assumptions just don't work anymore. And maybe if we live this revolution of equality every day, we will put a suitable end to this second 5,000-year period, that of patriarchy.